hello, hello. Happy Friday before Christmas. Oh my gosh, is it Christmas already? Where the hell did the year go? Like, I was scrambling this morning to go get my hairs cut, and I was like, oh, I'll just walk in, it'll be quick and easy, in and out in 5 minutes, like it always is at the drive through hair cutter. And it was like 90-minute wait. Oh. Yeah, I was like, oh, all right, well, I'm on my phone, I'm doing work, so I'm still working from the car while I'm waiting for my hair. Like, look, hey, new haircut. So anyways, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Team Tim. We're really excited to start talking about advanced, fun, like technology stack and all kinds of interesting conversations here, as we always like to do on Team Tim. I guess since I'm already talking, I'll go first. Team Tim, founder of Compliance Risk with our Compliance Scorecard product, where we help MSPs operationalize and keep their risk in check. And up next, our good friend, Mr. Schnurr.
Tim Schnurr, co-founder at Fort Mesa, also worked at Cavello. So GRC and the evidencing you need to put in GRC. Yeah, that's me, Jesse.
Jesse Miller, founder of Power PSA. We help MSPs build and scale security programs and do it profitably.
Awesome. And then John, take a few minutes. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about what I hear, like FBI and stuff. Like, what do you got going on over there? I'm very interested. Like, this dude's working with the FBI. So tell me all about that.
Great. Yeah. So I'm John Jackson, the CEO and owner of VitaGig. We're headquartered in Portland, Oregon, and have several technicians scattered out throughout the U.S. and working on building a national network of field service technicians to be able to service customers nationwide. We focus on MSP. We also, obviously are interested in this conversation today because cybersecurity is near and dear to our heart, and always looking to kind of bring that blend together of kind of a hybrid approach of MSP that's cybersecurity focused. Been in the industry for over 20 years, and just recently been engaging with the FBI and their cooperation program, I guess you could say, with MSPs and any IT service providers in general. And happy to share more about that later if you want me to dive into it and how I can. But it's funny whenever you start mentioning the FBI, some people get very suspicious, like all of a sudden we're in trouble with the FBI, or that if they're doing some shady stuff, like maybe that we're going to turn them in or something like that. That's certainly not the case. We're not in this business of trying to do the FBI's work for them, but it is a collaboration and in response to cybersecurity and cyber terrorism and cyber crime, to be able to work together so that the right hand and left hand knows what's going on.
Love that. Yeah, and that's really like that collaborative effort, right? So I hear that too, like, oh my gosh, you're working with the FBI. Like, I don't want to work with you. You're going to tattle on me. No. It's we all are in this industry to better protect our customers, better protect ourselves and our data. And these collaborative efforts, I think, are really, really important in getting that message out there. Like, I'm not here to tattle on you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to get you resources, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And then up next, Mr. Peter, how are you? It's been a hot minute since we've all chatted with you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me here. I'm Peter Schawacker, CEO, co-founder of a company called Nearshore Cyber. I've been in the business for about 25 years. Details are in the LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. Nearshore is incorporated in the United States and in Mexico. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico. We have three lines of business. One is consulting for managed services providers that want to do better, more profitable, more reliable MDR. We also have an advisory practice where we do CISO things and assessments, some GRC, and IR. And then we have a staffing and recruiting division where we provide resources out of mainly Mexico, sometimes Philippines for follow the sun purposes. And when we have GDPR, we go to Greece and Turkey. So high value, low cost for clients in the United States. for the most part.
Well, that's awesome. We just all right. I know in the green one I said don't plug our stuff, but there's a little tie-in here because I just brought on our first MSP from Mexico, and it's really interesting and fun working with them. Like the language barrier is awesome. I don't speak their language quite well. They speak really great English. And so one of the things we're actually going to do is start translating our stuff into Spanish for them and their clients, right? Because I'm really excited. So it's interesting that you mentioned that you do work down there. So I'd love to pick your brain after this. Like, it's certainly not anything I know about, but hey, stuff can translate, right? So it's interesting nonetheless.
Guy,
So
I will plug something, and that is a non-commercial effort that we probably spend half our time on. We operate communities really globally, but concentrating on Mexico because we're here. My partner, who's also my esposa, my wife, is Oaxaqueña. She's Mexicana.
Oh,
and
nice.
Our mission is twofold. One, not die poor. The other is promote cybersecurity in Mexico.
Nice.
And we do that by running weekly CISSP study groups in English and Spanish. We alternate. We do incident response tabletop games. We do that, again, every other week, alternating between Spanish and English. We have a Linux user group, and we do translations of cybersecurity documents and blogs and research stuff, and also games from English to Spanish. And we do it for free. All that stuff is free. That's why I do it for marketing.
Your best friend.
Yeah.
So
there's something about Mexico and Mexican cybersecurity people that you don't find out in other places. There's a resourcefulness and an ingenuity and a kind of heart that we find here. Yeah. I do this because I'm here, and I feel like I owe it to Mexico and the community as a foreigner. And what I find is that there's an enormous amount of value to be had north of the Rio Bravo, and that is my pitch.
Nice. I love that. And all of us, like I want to say all of us, a lot of us here in the United States tend to forget, like, this is a global community, right? This is a global network of being able to not just protect us, but to protect everybody in that instance, right? So I love that work that you're doing down there. Definitely we should collaborate at some point, but keep fighting the good fight, keep pushing that forward. Obviously, if there's any resources, I can offer Jesse or Tim to do the work because I'm too busy and too lazy, but yeah. Anyways, let's dive into it. As people are starting to join, hey, Degley, how are you? Good to see you. And then Chad, how are you? Yes, translation is great. Maybe Chad, I'll just have you do that work for us, right? So anyways, let's dive into it. Today's topic is what again? It's something about advanced cyber, too many words for Tim to pronounce with a mouthful. So
let's talk about, and I've heard this term, working in, Peter and I were colleagues or, worked at a big consulting firm, security architect. I guess we hear that, but what does that fuzzy term mean? I could start, maybe Jesse, you go first, Peter, John, what is that, right? Like advanced security, how do you build an advanced security program? And what does security architect mean, I guess, to you?
I'll take a quick stab and set the table, and I'd like to hear, Peter and John's take on this, obviously. But to me, security architecture is more of a holistic or strategic and thought through approach to end-to-end security for the infrastructure of an organization. I mean, I think a lot of times as MSPs, we're very narrowly focused, like, let's put in MDR and let's turn on MFA and 365. But have we really thought through the ramifications and all the tributaries that come out of doing best practice config in 365 and how to leverage those concepts to save money, right? Not have duplication on tools, licensing factors into this. So it's really a broad and deep exercise of how to leverage our security architecture in the best, or our security infrastructure in the best way. And by best, we could say more secure, lower cost, more efficiency, all those things. And it's that's the discipline that I think of when I think of advanced security architecture. So I'll let someone tell me I'm completely wrong, or modify that a little bit.
You're going about it. You're not just.
Yeah.
How about try 500 tools? That's how many I have in my stack.
Gosh.
You're not just throwing.
Try 500 tools. That's how many I.
You're not throwing tools at it, right? Love it. That's a great answer, Jesse. Sorry, I just had to do it. But.
Yeah, you couldn't.
Yeah, Peter, what do you think? I mean, what is a security architect? I got some names that we probably don't know, but what are your thoughts on that?
I like to go back to the term architect and ask what we mean by that and what it should mean. I was CISO a few times and got to work with some really excellent CIOs. And I realized there are things about the way we run security and organize or operate a security organization that don't make sense, but the CIOs does. Like if you think about like TOGAF, like how many security people know TOGAF?
Right.
TOGAF is a standard. Is also there's a certification if you collect those things.
Business maturity model.
Yeah, I mean, from what I got interested in, the reason I got interested in it was I was dealing with a client that does large scale cloud, SAP in cloud, right? And I heard people talk about TOGAF and IT architecture in that context, and I started looking at like, what does the CIO org chart look like? And then I looked at the CISO org chart. I'm like, this is why we screw this up. This is where we go wrong first. We don't really know what architecture means in an IT context. And what we do is we go for it. We wing it. And there are a lot of people who come in as architects who are just advanced engineers and are good at the product selection part of the procurement process. But we really don't know architecture in this game.
Yeah.
We don't. And so, I always like to pull up, like, what are our friends at Brad GPT or Chat GPF have to say, right? Layered in defense and all this fun stuff. Maybe I'll put that out there or not. But it is interesting, like, what does the structure look like? Jesse, maybe jump in a little bit there.
Well, I think Peter hit on something really important there is, when we think of traditional architecture, and even going back to the Renaissance, we think about architectures had to be, that's where the term Renaissance man came from, right? Is you had to understand how to run loads, how something you would build, would it stand up? You had to have a wide variety of different skill sets and understanding of the deep pieces for each one to make sure that a structure that you designed would stand up. And so I think that's what he's hitting on when we're talking about, advanced security architecture, is really understanding the ramifications of the recommendations we're making and the things that we're doing, not just focusing on, like you said, a really good engineer that knows how to procure this stuff. Does he know why he's procuring it? Does he map it to a business outcome? Does he map it to the greater thrust of the business, right? So kind of going broad there, but hopefully that makes a little more sense.
Well, going broad is the thing.
Right.
It is the architect's job is to understand the totality of the system, and as a system, they're supposed to be the great system thinkers. Right. And you mentioned the business part of it. There are these people called business analysts in the rest of the world. Yeah. We should get to know those folks, right? Because they're supposed to understand the process part of the kit, how the kit all fits together as the architect, and somewhere up the line you get to money, right? Engineers don't have to worry so much about the broader system, and they shouldn't have to all the time. They should have somebody they can rely on so that not everybody has to be everything all the time.
John, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's what, coming as an MSP ourselves, I think the strength and the weakness of the MSP world is that we're very good generalists, to Peter's point. We get to, sometimes we fall into the trap of, we think we can do just about anything because we are good generalists. And really where I think when we're talking about maturity and reaching up into some of those higher level organizations that we would like to push into with, service offerings and things like that, we've got to be able to specialize more in having things like what you were talking about, business analysts, and having that skill set in-house is not something that we generally think of as a separate function. So
John,
I agree with everything that's been said so far.
Awesome. And Obviously, very big MSP you run, well respected. How do you do that? How do you break out of kind of that commoditized or like generalist, mindset? How do you offer advanced security, on a client by client basis? How does it differ? Like, go to market. I think a lot of our listeners are interested in, how you've been successful there.
Yeah, so we really pivoted very hard in 2020 with COVID into this cybersecurity first approach. So that really where instead of just, bolting on a bunch of tools that, if you go to a trade show, you can walk away with, 20 different tools in your pocket that all supposedly are security. And if you all ask them, they all do the same thing. I've walked around some of these trade shows and talked to them. So you really got to understand and know, like, some of the things that are needed in our industry for security stack, for example, when it comes to advanced architecture, things like that. There's always new tools coming out, always new things that I think we should be looking at. I think anytime somebody has some sort of way to help us become more advanced when it comes to architecture and our approach, I think we should definitely look at it. But then we got to be able to also kind of filter out and parse through what's just good marketing and good sales tactics versus what does it actually deliver. So I've grown a lot and learned a lot through the past couple of years in just trying to filter through all that. And I'm sure many folks in the audience have become experienced with that too. So, there are, I think though, the willingness to learn, and I think the willingness to try out new things is an important thing that we need to continue to do from a cybersecurity perspective. And I think that's where probably a lot of people get burnt out at some point in their career, is that they've just seen everything and they've heard of everything and they've tried everything and they get tired of going through that circus.
Interesting. So when I start to think of an ASL, Advanced Security Architecture, right, ASA, when I start to think of that, right, I'm going to move beyond like the Norton antiviruses. I'm going to move more into advanced detection, EDR, MDR, XDR, all the DR things, right? I'm going to move away from those traditional, like, I don't even want to say non-enterprise to enterprise. I'm going to move our stack. I'm going to move our clients into something that's a little bit more, something that might have some threat intelligence, something that might help us understand specific risks in those businesses, right? A way to maybe tie in incident response and things like that. So MSPs, shifting from that generalized, we fix printers, we do help desk, we sell licensing, into building out a actual cybersecurity program and actual architecture, as Jesse used earlier. Like, when you walk around Rome, all the buildings kind of look the same because they've been architected. Am I using that word right? They've been built in sort of a structured manner or something that can be followed, right? Looking over here in chat, kind of see what's going up. Cloud configs, yeah. Dependencies. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on over here. So I'm just watching the chat flying around, like trying to stay up here. So go ahead, Jesse.
Well, no, Peter put something in the chat just now that I'd like him to elaborate on. Is, again, we get along. We go back and forth on LinkedIn quite a bit because he does something that I love typically, is he's like, I want to have a category definition. For having a discussion, we have to define the actual terms that we're talking about. So Peter, what does advanced mean? So we've talked about architecture. What does advanced mean in this discussion? Advanced security architecture.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was headed. So you read my mind. Thank you.
Well, advanced can mean two different things. One is you're providing value that other providers can't provide, and as a way to differentiate yourself in the market. Another is it's just a cheap flanking maneuver. It's a come on, because what do people really? Why do people go to MSPs anyway? They just want to solve the basic problem for the most part.
Right.
And then they want to be able to make a distinction between you and the 1,000 other MSPs that they see on whatever list or that their friends have recommended. And you have to have some way to say, we're different because we're advanced, right? Or NG. Like NG sounds a lot like advanced in that
Oh my gosh.
context.
How many
Right.
how many questionnaires are we going to get from insurance that says next generation firewall, NG that like stop?
Well, and that was defined in 1998 with Newsham, right? And then we get stateful things. Great. 24 years later, we're still using NG as if it were new. Sorry, I read history. I still remember it. Like this stuff's useful, but I think we have to understand that NG often. I mean, sorry, advanced. Really, the way it should be is like better than you're doing today.
Yeah.
Right. You bought this service as the bare minimum in order to get the purchase done, get the deal done, and now we're solving that. And then it's like, how has the threat landscape changed? How has IT changed? And how are we going to adapt to it? So advanced is not so much about the kit, the partner relationships, the capabilities, but rather the ability of the service provider to adapt to change, to keep up, and also, but crucially, to be able to communicate the value of that change to the person who is approving the invoice, right? Right?
Yeah.
Because if
That's
they
the
don't,
hardest
because
one,
if they're
right?
like, who agreed to this thing?
Yeah,
We didn't need advance. We just need to sell shoes and make cement.
Yeah.
And so advance a lot of the time is kind of like, we don't need advance. Get me cheap. Get me just enough. And as a business owner, I'll tell you, like, I need just enough. I don't need great. I don't need advance. I need people to be able to do email and send files and stuff like that. And so there is that aspect to it. But we also always have to bear in mind, like, what's the substance of the thing that provides value, and what are we doing just to get an edge on our competition? Can we be honest about it?
Yeah. And you make a good point, because words matter, right? As somebody in the compliance space, words matter. And if I were to see something, like you said, advanced XYZ, like, my clients don't need advanced. Maybe they do need advanced, but they want to know that so words matter, especially in context, right? So I feel like we've defined architecture. Go look at Rome. It all looks the same way. I think we've defined a little bit of advanced, right? So good, better, best, bottom of the barrel, advanced. I think we have some norms around that. Anybody else you want to add something? I see Jesse waiting to pipe in here.
Yeah, no, and I would say I agree with Peter that, like, I don't like advanced. Exactly. I always talk about good enough security. So I don't need to use that as a marketing term to say we're advanced or as a differentiator. I think there's different ways to do that. I think speaking in the mores and means of your ideal client profile is a better way to do that. However, I look at advanced as like defining our service catalog internally. So when we talk about advanced, the way I always referred to it in programs that I built is 3 different types of security services or products we can deploy, right? So the first one is deploy. So if you're deploying MDR, deploy is something that has little to no end user interaction or bearing on them. I can push out MDR agents or EDR agents to almost everyone's computer, and the users probably won't really know the difference unless one has a RAM issue or takes up resources. But typically, there's not much for the user to do. I think implement would be the second. So implement has minor user changes, but it doesn't really rock their world, so to speak. Think about password managers or end user training, things that are somewhat simple to deploy but require some change in the end user's day to day. But then we think about perform, and so perform is what what I would refer to advanced security. So perform cloud hardening, right? Perform golden image build out, perform CIS security benchmarking for your cloud environment. These are all things that have widespread ramifications into the infrastructure and into how the technology stack works. And I think then you're talking about advanced, so to speak. And when we're talking about services like that, that's when we're moving up that stack, like you talked about, John, to get with some of these co-managed environments and to start working with mid-market companies that have these larger, initiatives, requirements, and regulatory environments that require advanced services. And we may not call that to the customer, but I think we need to start talking about splitting those categories in our own organization so that we can have a well-defined service catalog and deliver that effectively. And I went on a bit of a ramble there, but hopefully that kind of lays out my thought process.
Yeah.
You took over my ramble. We're good.
Yeah. I think it's having a cybersecurity program, right? Not just like, in the MSP world, like reselling tools is kind of basic security. And maybe, some people on the audience will agree or disagree, but, I think that's the big thing. Having a cybersecurity program, making slightly increased, gradual progress, right? Progress, just the word, like slowly hardening and more hardening and iteration, right? So like, I think that's advanced security, at least in the MSP world. Peter's in the MSSP world. So even working with an MSSP or having kind of that expertise is advanced security on its own. So
yeah. John will be right back. I just popped him out, so we didn't have a blank face there. He'll be right back. So, wow. All right. So we've established a norm on architect. I feel like we've established a norm on advanced security. Right. So Jesse, I know how we always love to like make sure we're establishing norms. What is security? I got Norton antivirus. I'm good. I'm secure. Let's talk about security. Let's talk about what that means, in the MSP realm, right? So maybe Peter, you have something to add?
Yeah. By the way, just a minor correction. I work in MSPs and MSSPs. Usually getting one into the other or fixing it. Really, obviously in security, we're talking about one type of risk, and that type of risk has to take into business risk into account. I tend to think of it in terms of real or not. There's a business risk analysis, probably some very expensive consulting firm created, and that shows certain risks to the business. And one of those says cyber, and then cyber gets elaborated down hierarchically. There's a risk analysis, and then there are controls, costs, all that stuff. And then there's the ability to prove that those risks are handled. Where MSPs and MSSPs need to go is being able to prove that it's true. In the same way that you have to be able to justify the spend on the MSP in general, and the MSSP is a component of that. But in the end, security is a feeling that enables you to take on different kind of risks. Cyber risk is not at the top of anyone's risk unless they're in a firefight. Then it's on top of everybody's list, but that fades pretty quickly. The tail on that is short. What is my top risk as a business owner or as a leader? Payroll. If I'm as I advance as a company, as I take on investors, it's being able to deliver the return that I promised in my tear sheet or whatever. That's the risk I care about most. Cybersecurity is a distraction.
Okay. Love that.
I do it for a living, but I'm pretty hard-nosed about it at this point.
Yeah.
And I know very well that the person who signed that check gives not a hoot about security unless it's in their face or is the big fat number that is dragging down somebody's P&L.
Yeah.
So,
or like you're saying, disrupting their pay.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, John.
I was just if it's disrupting their ability to process payroll.
Yeah.
So, you said something a minute ago. Cybersecurity is a feeling of my risk appetite. I'm probably using the wrong word, but cybersecurity is a feeling. I like that. I honed in on that. What do you mean cybersecurity is a feeling, right? Like, no, this is all we talk about. It's everything we've been. What do you mean it's a feeling? Maybe elaborate a little bit, because I was like, that really struck me.
Yeah, security is a feeling. I feel secure, right? We could do quantitative analyses. We can do really, really good ones. We can do research. We can bring in third-party numbers. We can slice down the numbers and do charts and graphs and all that stuff. Why do we do all that stuff? Because at some point, people are going to look at the scores that we produced, and there's going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're going to look at number 3 and go, "That's the one that matters to me." And be like, "What? I did my quantitative analysis, like you asked for, CFO, CEO." Right? Why number 3? And they're going to go, because. And what that's going to force me to do is go back to the numbers and adjust my estimates, because they're always estimates, right? What we're really looking for is we're always aiming for the non-rational aspect of the way we make decisions. Because
Yeah.
decision making is all fundamentally non-rational.
Yeah, it's
Everything else is ex post factor rationalization. We go to the numbers and say, we did our math, here's our math. And somebody says, I don't like your math. Find somebody else to do new math.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, see, this runs in really well to like the risk, our rejection con presentation, right? Like just in starting on with the what ifs, and like Peter said, like I created a list of 5 things. What if? And I'm guessing the number 3 is the one that keeps him up at night. And then you're like, well, my analysis didn't meet that number, but okay, let's go with it. Let's talk about it, right?
Well, it's what I like. Peter, I love this frank conversation because the FAIR model. That's what a lot of people point to now. Is that's the most sophisticated, the best, the next gen model we for quantifying
advanced
risk.
model.
And when you dig into the FAIR model, there's a lot of subjectivity there. I mean, just bottom line, there is. You'd have to have perfect data to really even begin to approach a really objective quantified score. What you do is you make assumptions and you do the best you can with the data you have. But at the end of the day, what's helpful about the FAIR model, in my opinion, is the 6 types of loss. So you talk about the 6 types of loss and you ask the business owner, like you said, here's these 6 things. What are you the most worried about? And they say, oh, I'm the most worried about that. And you say, well, that's in the FAIR model. And here's what we estimated. And then to them, they've tied an emotional anchor to that ex post facto math, and they're like, okay, this makes sense. I can get behind this because I feel good, or I feel like it's going to make me secure. I feel like I'm justifying the spend, and I feel better about my risk at the end of the day. And I hate to say that, but it's more than that, but it's definitely not less than that, right? So,
where all this goes is accounting.
Yeah.
If you look at the history of industry, it's very short. When did this thing start? Like the 70s, maybe? Depends on where you draw the line. I've been reading about accounting lately in Mexico in Spanish. And one of the striking things about that research, and maybe this is true in English too, the books start in the 15th century. We have a long way to go. And my point here is that it's always been about feelings. It's always been about estimates. And when we say, what keeps you up at night? What we're talking about is a feeling.
Yeah.
So Tim just brought up the FAIR model, right? Yeah, the FAIR model of and so I love the fact that, and we talk a lot about this, and Tim, I'm going to kick that off real quick. We talk a lot about cybersecurity. We talk a lot about risk. We talk a lot about, and I love the fact that, Peter, you brought up, it's a feeling. Right? Do I feel secure? Jesse, I know we talked about this in the past, like the hierarchy of needs, right? Am I fed? Am I warm? Am I safe? Right? We talked about that. They're very relatable to small businesses and MSPs trying to sell these services to small businesses, right? So, John, I know you have a mature practice over there. I know you have a lot of cool, fun things going on. Do you try to sell, not on FUD, but maybe a little bit of that feeling of being secure? You talked about the FBI earlier, right? Some people can feel very safe to know that I have the FBI at my back, or some people can feel very insecure because the FBI is watching me. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I love where this is going. I think this is great because every business owner tries to quantify as much of their business as possible because data helps us make decisions versus feelings. Well, I can feel like I'm, even in your relationships, you're like, I feel like this, or, employee comes to me and says, I feel like I'm being treated this way or whatever. Like, okay, well, let's quantify this. So, when it comes to security, I mean, it's great. I think it's a great topic. We're talking about, well, how safe is your house? Well, that's a feeling. Like you could have barbed wire, 10-foot tall fences and yet still feel very insecure, still feel very, like somebody's about to kill you or something like that. I mean, maybe, I don't know what kind of compound Peter's got there, but I know that some people in Mexico have got some pretty big defense systems built up around their places. So that feeling, though, at the end of the day, where we try to help our customers is be like, we're going to reduce your risk. We can't guarantee. Now, we have come out with something recently. I won't try not to plug too many things, but we have come up with some warranties and things like that to help implement some sort of a guarantee. But we're like, if you can help us, by letting us put these systems in place, we can at least guarantee that your risk is going to be reduced by a significant amount.
Are you
Now,
talking about
again,
the cyber warranty product? I know we kind of touched on that a couple of weeks ago here on Team Tim. Are you talking, is that specifically? You're fine to mention it here, by the way.
I can call, so Cork,
Cork.
is a new,
Yeah,
new vendor in the space.
Want to say it. I wanted you to
offering
say
a warranty. Yeah. So yeah. So we are we're working with them and working on, like, essentially they're doing, they can offer a warranty through us because they are evaluating all our tools and making sure that our customers are using our tools. As long as they're using them, then we can offer this warranty to kind of produce a little bit of a stopgap between the incident and the time when you have to actually file an insurance claim, and maybe even eliminate the need for insurance claims if they're small enough. So that, to me,
I was going to say that plays right into I can feel a little better about my stuff because now I have insurance. Now I have a little bit of a guarantee. Now I'm putting up my barbed wire. Now I'm putting glass on top of the concrete fence. Peter probably knows what I'm talking about, having spent time in third world countries. Like, they put glass across the top of the fences, right? And so I can have a cyber warranty. I can have a cyber insurance. I can start to feel a little more secure with some of the things that are advanced.
Yeah, I think, though, like, to the point of this conversation, if we can avoid generalizations, I think our customers, the type of customers we work with, they're going to see through all that next generation advanced stuff like that. And I think you all hit the nail on the head. I just want what works and what is the bare minimum. Advanced just sounds like you're trying to go techie geeky on me, and you just want it for yourself. So there are some people who enjoy the idea of, like, the fact that I'm getting a Mercedes just for the pure fact that it's a Mercedes,
right?
Not for any other reason.
Even if you look at traditional marketing messages and advertising, like Toyota, oh, what a feeling, right? Or, feel safe in your Volvo, right? So, Peter, I love this conversation about the feeling of being secure, right? Because at the end of the day, someone put over here, and I don't know why it says LinkedIn user, but it's like, identifying those areas of risk and tying them to quantifiable things, right?
Yeah. Ultimately, you try to, you want to, want to be able to prove it. Like, this is what I love, breach attack simulation tools. Things like
say that again. You were a little mumbled there.
Oh, breach attack simulation, stuff like, well, the tools. Caldera is, is the project from MITRE Group that everybody can get. It's pretty good. And be able to show, like, given this situation, this kind of attack, we can block this, we can do it, we can repeat it. Great. Like QA, which is the rarest thing in security. We do a lot of assessment. We don't test ourselves, right? But when you say advanced, you're trying to appeal to a certain stakeholder within the organization. They're not buying. Their boss's buying. They want to hear. I think John said it. They want the minimum. I don't go to the OXXO, which is like our 7-Eleven, and buy advanced milk. I buy milk.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I don't want to pay another 30 pesos for a liter or whatever. I want what I need. I want to get it out, and I want it to be fast and easy, and I want to make sure that, like, the transaction goes quickly, and I don't have to stand in line. Like, that's what buyers anywhere are looking for, unless they have some kind of other interest. And then we get into the agency problem, which is a classic of economics. But getting in the door with advance is not the same thing as getting across the finish line. I do a lot of cost rationalization for various kinds of clients, pretty much all of them. Because I'll say, like, you want to get better vulnerability posture? Let's cut stuff.
Right.
Let's get an inventory of all the stuff you have, and we use a tool to do that. Yeah. And I'll say, this product, that product, that product, that product, that product, and I'll look at the number of licenses and go, do you really need that tool, or can you do it your Microsoft license? Who bought that? Are they still here? Right? And I can usually carve out like 20% of the cost in about a day just by asking a simple question: is that more than the minimum?
Right.
And advance is usually high on the list of things to cut.
Yeah, and that's one of the exercises that I always did in our MSP was to try to have a holistic approach of the entire organization and realize, and you've heard me say this a dozen times in the past, like one company had copiers all over the place, multifunctions, contracts all over the map, and like, hold on, pump the brakes. As you said, the person that wanted it isn't even here anymore. The project that they needed it for ended 2 years ago. Like, let's level set and get, as Jesse always says, good enough.
Yeah, I think, this is all super helpful because I agree that we like, as technical people, like our tools. So we like calling things advanced because it makes us, we talk about feelings, it makes us feel good. Like we're really doing something good, but it's not about how we feel, it's about how the customer feels. So again, I would reiterate that I think the advance needs to be how you define things internally and how you actually execute those. It's more of an operations term than it is anything else, in my opinion. Incidentally, Peter is probably the ops guy who likes the term advanced when you're selling to him, right? But so like I'll just give you a quick example, right? And again, feel free to throw your own in there or shoot mine down, but I think if we're talking about an advanced versus a normal amount of security, like let's say, okay, cloud monitoring, CSPM, cloud security and posture management, right? So we might have a SIM that monitors events in 365 and notifies us of suspicious travel alerts and actually then, handles those for us. And we're kind of doing some alerting on incidents that occur. That's not advanced, right? That's your typical cloud monitoring. Now, cloud security and posture management, where you're actually getting your hooks into all the APIs and seeing how configurations are done and seeing if there's duplication, seeing if there's more secure ways to configure things, seeing if there's more efficient ways to configure things, doing threat hunting. That is what an advanced security architecture product looks like, right? And so you need a different.
I think we lost audio.
Oh, we got
lost
it back.
Thought it was just me. That was just
It's
me.
like, wait a minute. Jesse,
Yeah, well,
great.
you're all like, what's going on?
It was
Great
advanced
monologue
audio.
all by yourself.
No, I think we caught the end of it. Everything. As I think about the word advanced, what I'm really hearing is one of two things. One, smoke and mirrors, good, sell stuff, get in the door. But what I'm really hearing is catching up. Even the Tejcik-Notion paper, insertion evasion, intrusion detection, back from '98. Hit me on LinkedIn, I'll give you a link. Even that was catching up. When we talk about CSPM, what are we doing? We're 5 years behind on cloud. We're just at advanced. We're just catching up. And that's fine. You be a little bit behind. The advanced meaning you're doing things you don't need yet.
So I don't know, Tim, what you're doing. But
You're muted. You're muted, Jesse. Sorry. There you go. I'm trying to tickle it.
over there.
The out of office is already on in my email, and this is the last thing I have to do for today. So you're just gonna have to bear with me and not being focused right now.
Like, what the hell are you? All right, so we have. I'm going to use one from our good friend Ray Orsini. We have gone off the rails here, folks. Welcome to Friday before Christmas. So, yay!
Yeah, whose idea was this?
Here, let's bring it back in. We have identified and normalized the word advanced. And by the way, stop using it. We have normalized and sort of talked about architecture. That's a mouthful. And now we're talking about normalizing security. And I love Peter's piece of security is a feeling.
Yeah.
As opposed to cybersecurity is the thing. Cybersecurity is a feeling. I love that. It's new. It's something I hadn't heard of or thought of before, but I totally agree with it. And then we started going down this path of risk and quantifying and equating risk to that feeling. Oh my goodness! Somebody put a book here. So let me just pull this up, and let me bounce over to Facebook so I can figure out who that is, because it was probably Keith, but it's not. Right. So pull it back up. Let me.
So there was one other comment from Chad talking about good, better, best, right? And MSPs, we see this all the time: gold, silver, platinum, or some kind of like, Peter's convinced me. Advanced security. I'm not using the word anymore. I think customized security obviously anytime you do things customized, it's expensive as an MSP because you don't scale well when you're not doing, some kind of process-based thing. So, and that's why Jesse goes, hey, just go get clients that are all the same because you don't have to really customize, right? So,
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
Well, it's funny that I was just having this conversation with a client. I said, we want to build a low watermark set of services. That's your basic security that I'm going to tell you need this every risk assessment I do. I don't need a risk assessment to tell you you're going to need these 5 things, right? Or 10 things, whatever it may be. However, it's going to be low watermark and vCISO, and then risk managed from that point on. And to your point, we can be customized if our offer catalog is tight. So if we look at a risk that's here and you have this risk and we have a very built modular package to deliver it, we just plug that module in. Think about it like programming for all us tech nerds out here. If you have a well-built module that you can call in a program every time you need it, that's how you execute at scale with customization or advanced security. I'm going to keep using the term. Sorry, Peter.
Customize is a better word, right? Because even if you don't have to know how the sausage is made inside, right?
Well, I want to steal Peter's word, right? Peter, you put this over here. I'll let you say it.
Tailored, yeah. Well, and I think it's important, and what Jesse said is spot on, and I see this over and over again, where you have like the standard list of offerings with the standard price and the SKU, and the sales rep can give you a contract right in the meeting and sign it, and then the customer's like, but what about? Right? And the answer is, you're a 50-person company. You're going to take what you can afford, in the same way that when you make minimum wage, you shop at Walmart and you take what's off the rack. If you work for somebody at Rockefeller Plaza, you go to Bloomingdale's.
Yeah. So John,
and that's the thing, or you can get your stuff tailored, right? But it's always a question of like, how much variation do you have? How much standardization do you have? And what's your strategy, right? Who are you targeting? This is why when people are, I'm like, what's your target market? And people are like, oh, everyone. I'm like, you're doomed or you're lying.
Yeah. So John, let me ask you. So, do you, or have you in your MSP or MSSP or MSPP, whatever, have you defined your ideal customer profile? Have you defined your stack? Have you defined good, better, best? Talk a little bit about, and I don't want you to give away secret sauce, but I certainly want to have you have an opportunity to kind of pipe in with tailored versus not versus advanced versus,
Great question. So I get that a lot. What's our ideal customer profile? I think we're still working on it, to be honest. I think we're still in the process of learning really what is ideal for us, because we have a pretty good idea, but I think we have a wide range right now of customer industries and customer types. And honestly, I could tell you, like, we have some really awesome customers and they don't have a lot in common. But there's something about their culture and their appreciation of the work we do that makes us want to keep doing business with them.
That's awesome.
We could have one that might be a marketing agency, another one that might be a manufacturing firm, another one that's in construction, another one's in the legal. But they all listen to what, for one thing, I wanted to go back and say too, is like, we listen to what they want so that we can offer that tailored solution, but they also listen to what we recommend to be able to support them and to get what they want. So that's the kind of customers we like to work with, is the ones who listen to our recommendations and we're like, hey, you may not understand what we're asking for right now. That's okay. We're going to try to speak non-technical as much as possible so that you don't have to learn a new language.
Love that.
But we want to make sure that you can accomplish what your business needs, and that your business needs to be secure. And yes, it is a feeling, but we also know some of the things that need to happen in the back end to make sure that we can reduce that risk, make you as secure as possible beyond just having a feeling, also quantifiable. But really, what can we, there's going to be something that in 3-6 months that we need to implement that we don't even know exists right now, right? Like, we all know that as security folks, the future is always going to be have an is going to change this industry. So I need to have customers that I can walk up to in 3 months and say, we need to implement this right now. Let's go.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of customers we like to work with. So ideal client profile, I don't have a good answer for you, but I like the ones who listen to us.
You probably have one. You just said you're not explicit about it, right?
Yeah. Does it vary like small? See, because I could see, and Peter made some comments here in the chat. With a smaller customer, obviously they're actually gaining a ton of value, even if you're not being too tailored, right? So John, I think you probably have fully managed and co-managed. Am I right or wrong
Yes,
on that?
correct.
So
Correct.
in the co-managed situation, you probably have to be a little more tailored, right? I'm guessing, or not.
It is very customizable because they're if we're co-managing, let's say with a director of IT or a CIO or something like that, they may already have some systems and things in place that may not be our preferred stack, and we need to kind of work alongside of that. But we have seen some situations where they start to come our way a little bit, and those are the kind of collaborations we like over time. Maybe we start off in this lane, but let's get over in this lane as soon as possible.
Makes sense.
When does I'm curious about this conversation about co-manage. When does staff augmentation come into it? Because I mean, one way you can deal with the co-manage or with the custom, with the bespoke, and everybody's got some. What about like the relationship between long-term staffing, staff augs, kind of blanket retainers and co-managed? Because I mean, ultimately, like if you want to be custom, you just hire your own people. You don't have an MSP. Plenty of companies do that, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other's like my little shop where I'm just like, I'm not managing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe we should have I would love to and bring Bob on because we have a good friend of ours, Bob, that's all Mr. Coman, right? And so I would love to be able to continue the conversation on co-managed versus staff augmentation versus vCISO versus Jesse and I have this thing about vCISO versus fractional. Like we have this thing going on. I think that would be a really great episode for us to kind of bring forward and really dive into what does co-man look like? What does virtual or fractional CIO look like? That would be a really good episode for us to come up.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. So we're winding down as we always do at 10 minutes before the end of the hour, and since all of us tend to, or at least me anyways, go way off the rails, we usually like to spend the last 5 to 6 minutes, everybody taking 1 or 2 minutes and having a key takeaway from today's conversation. So Peter, you're in the right corner, top corner, so we're going to let you go first on tell us about your a key takeaway.
I don't know. I think you guys are pretty cool. I'm undecided on the mustache, Jesse. I'm still not. I don't know. But I love you guys. This is really fun. I got nothing except you're okay.
Well, moving right along, then we're gonna make John actually have a key takeaway. John, what is your key takeaway?
Never agree to a podcast the day before a holiday weekend. Just joking. Actually, I will say I'm more all about having fun while we work. So let's do this more often. Let's schedule more podcasts on holiday weekends because there's just less pressure, less. I don't know.
Nobody's watching anyway.
Well, they are. They are.
There's always the replay.
They were at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse, right? I mean, obviously, right? You gotta handlebar that thing, right? So,
yeah. I think there needs to be more mustache, not less. You must commit.
Commit.
So I like
Dan Gear or Marcus Ranum. Either way.
I like it nice and tidy. We'll see. My wife's not the biggest fan of it, but she says that guys only get so much ways to customize their look, so I'll let them have it.
I love that.
I guess my takeaway would be, is the concept of, I think advanced is custom, and so take and do the low watermark set of controls. Here's what we know every customer is going to need. vCISO is part of that. And then use your vCISO and your risk advisory to tailor or customize, or the word of your choice, based on the client's profile, based on their needs, based on their wants, and based on what you think will make them the most secure.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to go next, and I'm going to let Tim kind of take us home with what's coming up next week as well. So I would say that one of my biggest key takeaways from today is cybersecurity is a feeling. Thank you, Peter, for that, because, we've talked about this in the past. We've talked about hierarchy of needs. And when we talk about business risk and business assessments and getting a seat at the table and all those things that we've done over this past year, right? I think it all kind of boils down to, do I feel safe? Do I feel that my business is going to be okay? Do I feel like we're all right? We're doing the right things, or we have the right people in process? Do I get to sleep at night? Right? I guess that's really what it is. Am I feeling well enough that I can get to sleep at night? And I don't know why Mr. Tim's in here twice, but I'm going to kick out his other one.
Yeah, no, I totally lost it. But you were full screen, so all good. But I think the key takeaway is Peter definitely, don't use the word advanced, tailored, customized.
Hold on, wait a minute. We need to pull you up like we always do. There you go.
And that's, you still got to make money, right? So it's an art, it's a balance. You got to convince the client that what you're offering is not only valuable, but also you can do it at a cost that's reasonable for them. So, I think that's probably a key takeaway that is resonated with some of the things we've said in the past, but that's a key takeaway for the week. Next week, Tim, Jesse, great conversation with Kevin Adler, former NASA Spacecom lawyer turned MSP guy. Yeah, I don't know how he went on that little journey, but
he just likes a challenge. He's like, I figured out space. I'm gonna go try and figure out the channel.
Yeah, next week we're really excited. How do you go from Nebraska lawyer to working at NASA to getting things actually in space around cybersecurity to now being it just was an interesting journey. But let me wrap up. I want to give a couple of minutes back here. I want to say thank you to Peter and John for having taking the time a couple days before Christmas. We went off the rails, but I really appreciate you all coming on. I want to kind of give a couple of key stats here, right, in the last minute and a half. So I was starting to put together a year-end summary. So we've had over 30 guests, and we started this last week of July, right? Pseudo officially. So we've had over 30 guests in less than 6 months. We've had 29 episodes. By the time this at year ends, we'll have 30 episodes. We've had hundreds and hundreds of comments and likes and shares and all of that stuff. It's been really when Tim and I would banter every once in a while we'd just kind of go for LinkedIn Live and banter. And before we knew it, here we are a year later, 6 months later. And that's because of the MSPs and the audiences and the interaction. We want to thank you for that. We want to put, at least me personally, my heartfelt thanks into all of those that have actually, contributed and been part of. I could rattle off all the names of the people, but it's humbling, right? I don't know. I'm gonna cry. No, but honestly, we couldn't do this without great guests. We couldn't do this without our amazing audience that tends to always give us banter and crap in the chat. So we're glad and we're happy for that. We're really excited for next year. We have some great sessions coming up, but there's one more at the end of the year. Learn how the lawyer turned into NASA, turned into MSP. So we'll see you next Friday. Same bat time, same bat channel. And everybody have a safe, fun, and eventful holiday weekend. I'm going to say Merry Christmas because that's who I am. and you all have a Merry Christmas. And I get to have my first grandchild at Christmas this year, so I'm very excited.
Good for you.
Feliz Año Nuevo. Congratulations for that.
Thank you. Anybody else have any last words?
Thanks for having us.
An hour. Good to go.
Awesome.
Merry Christmas.
See you next
Awesome.
week.
And I am going to end us here. So cheers, everybody.
Subscribe now.